Swayam Prabha. Digital India. Educated India.
Welcome. I welcome you all to this lecture in the course Sandhi in Paninian grammar. In this lecture, we continue studying the ach sandhi or the vowel sandhi. We have noted that ach sandhi is classified broadly under two heads: ekasthanika ekadesha and dvisthanika ekadesha, and we are studying the ekasthanika ekadesha. What this means is that there is one substitute eka adesha in place of one substituent ekasthanika ekadesha, and we noted that there are two instances of this type of sandhi. The first one is yan sandhi and the second one is ayavayava sandhi, and we have been studying the yan sandhi in some detail now. And we shall study the dvisthanika ekadesha later on after we finish the second instance, namely ayavayava sandhi and its study. The diagrammatic representation of ekasthanika ekadesha is as follows. Here you have A in close proximity with B, so you have A plus B. B is the right hand side environment and A is substituted by C. A plus B is the input and C plus B is the output. A is the substituent, the sthani, and C is the substitute and the adesha. This first type of sutras are stated in this section from 6172 onwards up to 6183. And as we saw earlier, we have been studying the yan sandhi, the first instance of ekasthanika ekadesha. We have studied the sutra ikoyanachi. We also studied the expanded meaning of ikoyanachi when we apply the uddeshya videya bhava and we apply the sutra anudit savarnasya cha pratyayaha in the meaning of ikoyanachi. Then we also noted the criterion for selection of substitute. Then we looked at individual examples. Then we are discussing various other related aspects. We continue the discussion and today we shall deal with the interrelation between the Swara Sutras and the yan sandhi. This is an extremely important topic related to the yan sandhi. Yan sandhi is an input to the real rules dealing with the accent. I repeat, yan sandhi is an input to the rules dealing with the accent or swara in both situations. Within a pada internal and between two padas or external sandhi. In this particular lecture, we shall focus on these two sutras which are primarily the internal yan sandhi based sutras dealing with accent. The first one is 174 Udatta Yano Halpurvat. And the second one is 824 Udatta Svaritayoho Yanaha Svarito Anudhattasya. Let us look at the meanings of these sutras and the examples in detail. First of all, let us try to study two derivations, one of which would be the example of these two sutras and the other one would be the one for contrast. So here we have the verbal root kru and we are deriving the agentive form derived from verbal root kru after adding the suffix truch. So we have kru plus truch added by 133. Then by 133 and 139 we get kru plus tru. Then by 7384 kru becomes kar and we have kar plus tru and so we get the form kar tru. In all these steps there isn't any accent mark shown, which is quite obvious because both elements in the process they possess one udatta accent which is always unmarked as far as the Rigvedic writing accent writing pattern is concerned. So kru plus truch and we have both vowels unmarked, both vowels udatta. And then when we join them together, it is this accent which is retained and so this udatta gets converted into an anudatta. So we have the form kartru with the final vowel udatta, ru being udatta. So ka is shown as anudatta. The meaning of this word is one who does, which is a doer. Kartru means a doer. Now let us take a look at the derivation shown on the right hand side of the slide. The derivation is same except the marker in the suffix. Here it is trun and the sutra is different. It is 32135. This suffix trun is also an agentive suffix, but there are some additional shades of meanings like tachila, tadharma and tatsadhukari. One whose habit it is or one whose skill it is and so on. So we have kru plus trun. Once again 133 and 139 play a role and we have kru plus tru. Then we have 7384 and we have kar plus tru. And then as before all these elements they are accented, they have udatta accent, but at this particular final stage the accent of this element was going to remain, but because of the marker na now the initial vowel gets accented. So this initial vowel is accented now and so we have kartru with an initial udatta and ru as anudatta and this anudatta comes immediately after an udatta and therefore this anudatta is converted into a svarita, udatta anudattasya svaritaha, and so there is a svarita mark, vertical bar on top of ru. This is what is kartru with initial vowel udatta. The meaning over here is one who does, yes, but one whose habit it is to do. That means a skilled doer. So that is the meaning difference. If you have initial vowel udatta in this form kartru, the meaning is going to be a skilled doer, and if the final vowel is going to be udatta in this form, the meaning is just a doer, doer of an action, that is all. These meaning differences brought about by the accents are extremely important for us to study the accent based on the yant sandhi later on in this lecture. It is important to see now when we add certain suffixes to these two forms how the other forms are derived. Let us first of all look at the forms derived of the word kartru with the final vowel being udatta, like this. So kartru has got this final vowel udatta. Remember, this means that this is derived by adding the suffix trach, and the meaning of this form is just a doer. So how would the subanta forms of this pratipadika figure? They are stated on this particular slide. Karta kartarau kartaraha, kartaram kartarau kartrun, kartra kartrubhyam kartrubhihi, kartre kartrubhyam kartrubhyaha, kartuhu kartrubhyam kartrubhyaha, kartuhu kartroho kartrunam, kartari kartroho kartrushu. These are the forms derived. Amongst them, there are 4 forms which are marked in blue: kartra, kartre, kartroho, and also kartroho. These are peculiar and of our interest, where we are studying the interrelation between the yan sandhi stating rule and the accent stating rules. Here is the sutra, Udatta Yano Halpurvat, 6.174, which plays a very crucial role in bringing about the accent in these forms. So the meaning of the sutra is stated over here. What this sutra means is that the vibhakti suffixes known as asarvanama sthana, meaning thereby that they start from the 6th case in this case, and elements known as nadi, which come immediately after a yant substitution, which is after a consonant in place of an udatta vowel, then such an asarvanama sthana vibhakti or a nadi, they are substituted by an udatta vowel. Let me read again. The vibhakti suffixes known as asarvanama sthana, that is starting from the 6th in this particular case, and elements known as nadi. These elements are substituted by an udatta vowel when they come immediately after a yant substitution in place of an udatta vowel, and this yant substitution should be after a consonant. Here is an example, kartru plus a, and then there is a yant sandhi taking place. So this ru becomes r. We have kartra plus a, and then kartra plus a, and we join it together and we have kartra. Remember, this a is marked as anudatta over here, but in this particular step it is marked as udatta, and as a result this final a is marked as udatta. This is what we showed on this previous slide by the blue inked forms. Kartra, this final a is udatta, this final a is udatta, this os is udatta, and similarly this os is also udatta. So what is the explanation of udatta yano halpurvat? This is the explanation. Any subsuffix is stated to be anudatta by default by the sutra anudattau suppitau. So the suffixes over here, including a, os and os, all of them, they are anudatta. But they are stated to be udatta by 6.174 if and only if the suffix comes after one, it should come after a yant substitution, obviously whose substituent is an ik, which is udatta. So this ik should be udatta, and then this ik should be substituted by a yant, and also this yant substitution is preceded by a consonant. So if we take a look at this example once again, we note that we have kartru plus a, and we have kartru plus a. This is the place where yan sandhi takes place. Here we have kartru with the final ru as udatta, and therefore ka is marked as anudatta. A is a subsuffix, so it is marked as anudatta. Now because of this a, this ru is getting substituted by r, so we have kartra plus a. Now 6.174 applies and says that this a is to be substituted by an udatta a. This is unmarked and this is an udatta a. And so we join this together and we get the form kartra where a is udatta. A, even when stated as anudatta by default, by anudatta usupitau, because of 6.174 where yan sandhi comes into play as a condition, this a becomes udatta. So we get kartra with final udatta, kartre also final udatta, kartroho, kartroho, final vowel being udatta. Here we see that ru obviously is ik. It is also udatta here. We know why, because this is the truch suffix. Now this ru is coming after ta. So this is ru, this is ta. And by 6.177 it is substituted by yan. That yan in this case is ra. After which a, which is anudatta, now by the application of 6.174 this a becomes udatta. In this way the forms kartra, kartre, kartroho can be explained. Here the Sutra 6.174 plays a very crucial role, which takes 6.177 as an input. Now if we look at the forms of the word kartru with initial udatta vowel, this will be a contrast, and this word kartru is derived by adding the suffix trun. The meaning of this word is a skilled doer. In this case the initial vowel is udatta, so the other vowels they are anudatta. So here we have kartra, in which the initial vowel is udatta, this vowel is anudatta, kartru, followed by another anudatta vowel a. Now there is yan sandhi, ru getting substituted by r, but this yan is not in place of an udatta vowel. This is in place of an anudatta vowel, and therefore this anudatta a does not get substituted by an udatta a as happened in the previous example. This is the contrast. Similar thing happens in kartre and kartroho and kartroho. So in all these forms the final vowel remains anudatta. Kartra, a is anudatta, but this anudatta comes immediately after an udatta. Therefore this anudatta gets converted into a swarita by the sutra udattad anudattasya swaritaha. Similarly kartre, and you have this anudatta vowel a, which gets converted into a swarita because this anudatta comes immediately after an udatta. Similarly in kartroho and kartroho, this o, which is anudatta, and this comes after the yan r, which has come in place of the anudatta ru, and therefore this is converted into a swarita by udattad anudattasya swaritaha. This is how the forms of kartru, meaning the skilled doer, differ from the forms of kartru, meaning just a doer. And udatta yanohal purvat applies in case of the word kartru, meaning just a doer, than in the word meaning a skilled doer. So even though yan sandhi has taken place over here, it is not in place of an udatta ik, and therefore udatta yano hal purvat does not apply here. Now let us look at the feminine form derived from the word kartru. This will be the example of the nadi form also mentioned in udatta yano hal purvat. We looked at the examples kartra etc. They are the asarvanama sthana vibhaktis, and ngip is the nadi termed element. Ngip is marked with the marker p, whose function it is to show that this Ni or E is Anudatta by the sutra Anudattau Suppitau. Now you have the word Kartru once again with the final Ru being Udatta. So this means a doer, just a doer. And now you want to derive a form with the feminine gender information added to it. So you want to say she who is a doer. And so you have the word Kartru, you add the suffix Ngip by 415 Rudnebhyo Ngip, and so here this E is Anudatta by default, this Ru is Udatta. Now there is a Yan Sandhi that is happening in place of an Udatta vowel. So this Ru gets substituted by R over here. Now 61174 applies, and because this is a Yan Sandhi in place of an Udatta vowel, this Anudatta becomes an Udatta by 61174. This is a Nadi and this becomes Udatta. So we have Kartr plus E, E being Udatta, and finally we get the form Kartri with the final vowel being Udatta. She who is a doer. Similarly, if we look at this derivation, we have Kartru initial vowel Udatta followed by Ngip. So Kartru has got initial vowel Udatta unmarked, E is Anudatta by default by the sutra Anudattau Suppitau. Once again there is Yan Sandhi, but now this Yan happens in place of an Anudatta vowel which comes immediately after an Udatta, therefore it is converted into a Swarita, but this Anudatta and this Anudatta gets the substitute Yan, and so now 61174 does not apply, and this E is not converted into an Udatta vowel. So it retains its Anudatta status, and once again we have the initial vowel Udatta, and this Kartri where Ka is Udatta means she who is a skillful doer. So in one form where long E is Udatta, in Kartri the meaning is just who is a doer, she who is a doer, and where the initial vowel is Udatta, the meaning is she who is a skillful doer. This is the difference that is brought about by the Yan Sandhi and the sutra Udatta Yano Hal Purvat, to which Yan Sandhi acts as an input. Now when we derive the pada forms from the feminine form Kartri, this is how the sutras apply and the forms happen. So for example, we are right now looking at the word Kartri, which has got the final vowel Udatta, which is derived from the word Kartru, which has got the final Ru Udatta. Now this E is Udatta followed by the sup suffixes which are by default Anudatta. So we have Kartri plus Au being Udatta, and then some other rule Udatta Swaritayor Yanaswarito Anudattasya comes into play and converts this Anudatta into a Swarita. So there are these three forms showed in blue ink which are subjected to the application of the sutra Udatta Swaritayor Yanaha Swarito Anudattasya, and Yan Sandhi is the input for this particular sutra. Then we have these forms shown in the green colors, in which once again Udatta Yano Hal Purvat applies, and so the final vowel becomes udatta. Kartriya, kartriye, kartriyaha, kartriyaha, kartriyoho, kartriyau and kartriyoho. In contrast, if we study the forms, derived from the word kartri with an initial vowel being udatta, which means that this word kartri is derived by adding the suffix trin to the verbal root kru, and the meaning of this form is a skilled doer, she who is a skilled doer. The word forms of this kartri are of the following nature. Kartri, everywhere you have the initial vowel being udatta. Now kartriyau etc., the long e which is anudatta gets substituted by a yan, followed by au which is also an anudatta, but because this yan sandhi has not taken place, in place of an udatta vowel, no sutra applies over here. The ones that we have seen, neither udatta yanohal purvat obviously has no scope over here, but udatta svaritayor yanaha swarito anudattasya does not apply here, and so we don't get this swarita as swatantra swarita. This is a swarita, but this is primarily an anudatta which comes immediately after this udatta, and therefore it is a swarita. Now in none of the other forms like kartriya, kartriya etc., we see that there is this udatta vowel being substituted by yan, and therefore the by default anudatta vowel getting converted by an udatta vowel. That is not happening over here. In all the forms of this, we have the initial vowel being accented. This is for the sake of contrast. So here is the sutra udatta svaritayor yanasvarito anudattasya. What this means is an anudatta vowel which comes immediately after the yan substitution, which replaces an udatta or a swarita vowel. So that anudatta vowel is substituted by a swarita vowel. I repeat, an anudatta vowel is substituted by a swarita vowel. An anudatta vowel is substituted by a swarita vowel. If this anudatta vowel comes immediately after the yan substitution, which replaces an udatta or a swarita vowel. So here we have kartri with the final vowel being udatta, followed by au with anudatta accent shown with the horizontal bar below the letter, and so now iko yanachi applies and this e gets substituted by ya. So now you have kartriya plus au. So this ya has come in place of an udatta e, and so this sutra 824 applies over here, and we have kartriya plus au, and this au which is an anudatta gets converted into a swarita, and this ka remains an anudatta, but this au is the swarita. This is how it is shown, kartriyau. So ka is anudatta, au is swarita, which is considered to be the swatantra swarita, kartriyau. The explanation of this sutra is this: any subsuffix is stated to be anudatta by default, but it is stated to be swarita by 824 if and only if it comes after a yan substitution, whose substituent is an ik, which is an udatta vowel. Also, the scope of application of this sutra is the sarvanama sthana vibhakti, which is the first 5 suffixes. Udatta yanohal purvat applies in the asarvanama sthana vibhakti, that is beginning with the sixth suffix. Now in this example, kartri plus au, where you have final vowel being udatta followed by au and kartryau is derived, this is an explanation. Here au is anudatta shown by horizontal bar. This is preceded by e which is udatta, and if you look at the history of this e, you will also find that initially this e was anudatta, but this e got converted into anudatta by the application of 61174, because when this e appears in the environment of this e, the following ru vowel which is udatta was substituted by yan which is a r, therefore this e gets converted into an udatta vowel. Now this e gets substituted by the substitution yan, in this case it is ya, and so now this au is substituted by a sparita. This is how it is shown with the vertical bar on top. So we have kartryau with a sparita on top of au. We also observed that udatta yanohal purvat applies in case of the vibhakti forms from instrumental onwards, where we derive the form kartriya in this particular fashion, kartri plus a, where you had kartri with e as udatta followed by a which is an anudatta. And now because this e which is an udatta gets substituted by yan, that is ya, then this a which was anudatta earlier is now substituted by an udatta a. And so we have the form kartriya with the final vowel being udatta, which is a sup, and therefore which is originally stated to be anudatta, but now because of the application of 61174 udatta yanohal purvat, this becomes udatta. To summarize what we have seen so far, the accent that was stated on the suffix through records different meaning conditions. In case of truch, the meaning is just a doer. In case of trun, the meaning is a skilled doer. And the different accent is also provided by Panini to indicate this change of meaning. And then the Pratipadika gets derived with these features of different meaning as well as different accent, even though the word form looks similar. And the difference in accent is also visible when a feminine suffix is added. In one case, because the vowel ru, which is udatta, gets substituted by yan, and in other case vowel ru, which is anudatta, which gets substituted by yan. So the word in which vowel ru was udatta and got substituted by yan, feminine suffix becomes udatta, and the word in which the vowel ru was not udatta and got substituted by yan, ngeep or e does not become udatta. This is the difference of accent that is also visible when a feminine suffix is added. And then when we derive the pada forms of these words in the feminine suffix, the same accent also plays a very crucial role as far as the final accent of the final pada is concerned. And we have studied this in detail in this particular lecture. To conclude, we can say that this is how history of an accent in the derivation process plays a crucial role in explaining accent at different levels. And most importantly, this is how the yan sandhi becomes an input for accent rules. Thank you for your attention.